Brian, obviously, this has the potential to change the race. How explosive is this?
Americans are already voting in some states, and most Americans' minds are already made up. But Anna, this is one of the most important stories of the past 5 years. Not one of the most important stories of this year, but one of the most important stories of the past 5 years. Because as a candidate, Donald Trump fought hard to shield his tax returns, and as president, he has fought even harder to shield his tax returns from public scrutiny. So this is the kind of information that we are going to be hearing about for days and weeks to come, and including on the debate stage in front of 60, 70, 80 million people on Tuesday night. No doubt Joe Biden will be studying this New York Times story and thinking about how to bring it up at the debate. But I think this goes even deeper than that. The New York Times, quoting here, Mr. Trump has been more successful playing a business mogul than being one in real life. This gets to the heart of the president's campaign 5 years ago, 4 years ago, that he was the star of The Apprentice who knew how to bail out America. Well, the New York Times story cuts to the heart of that. And by the way, the Times says this is only the beginning. They say other articles are in the works in the coming weeks. And there's an important context here from the New York Times saying all of the information they've obtained was provided by sources with legal access to it. Most of this has not been public before, but the Times was able to verify it in various ways. So the president might try to scream fake news, but the documents are in the hands of reporters who are able to independently verify it. And that is a very big deal. And look, we're going to see the president throw up smoke bombs. He's going to turn on his fog machine, try to distract from this story, try to lie to the public about other events to try to distract from these revelations. But the story is right there for all to read, and it gets to the heart of his entire presidency. That's why I think it's one of the most important stories of the last 5 years.
There's a New York Times story that came out about an hour ago that says that when you came to the White House, you were paying about $750 a year in federal income tax. They are not releasing they're not publishing the tax returns. They're not showing that out there. They're saying to protect their sources. In your tax return, sir, does that sound right that you were paying a couple $100 a year of federal income taxes?
It's fake news. It's totally fake news. Made up, fake. We went through the same stories. You could have asked me the same questions 4 years ago. I had to litigate this and talk about it. Totally fake news. No, actually, I paid tax. And you'll see that as soon as my tax returns. It's under audit. They've been under audit for a long time. The IRS does not treat me well. They treat me like the Tea Party, like they treated the Tea Party. They don't treat me well. They treat me very badly. You have people in the IRS, they treat me very, very badly. But they're under audit. And when they're not, I would be proud to show you. But that's just fake news. The New York Times tried it. The same thing. They want to create a little bit of a story, a little bit of. They're doing anything they can. Not only that's the least of it. I mean, the stories that I read are so fake. They're so phony.
Did they tell you this was going to come out today?
No, I didn't know anything about it.
Mr. President.
I think somebody said they were going to do a negative. They always do. They only do negative stories.
In Florida, a campaign to raise money to pay the fines and court fees of felons got a big boost this week. $16 million from billionaire and former New York City Mayor Michael Blumeberg. Felons in Florida who have served their time can legally register to vote only after they have paid all court-ordered fines and fees. As NPR's Greg Allen reports, not everyone is happy that others are helping them pay their costs and register to vote.
Desmond Meade heads the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition, the group behind the voter initiative known as Amendment 4. It overturned a Reconstruction-era law that prohibited most felons from ever regaining the right to vote. But under a law signed last year by Florida's governor, felons can't register to vote until they've paid all fines and fees imposed as part of their sentences. Undaunted, Meade's group has gone to work raising money to help felons pay those costs.
We've helped over 4,000 people be able to satisfy their legal financial obligation. And what we've seen so far has been an average of about $1,000 per person.
Bloomberg's $16 million contribution gets Meade's group close to the goal of $25 million. It's set to get fines paid so people with felony convictions can register to vote by Florida's October 5th deadline. In a memo reported by the Washington Post, the Bloomberg organization said it views donations to the fund as a cost-effective way of adding votes to the Democratic column. That spurred a reaction from Florida Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz, an outspoken Trump ally. On Fox News this week, he called on Florida's Attorney General to investigate whether Blumeberg was violating Florida law.
It is a third-degree felony for someone to either directly or indirectly provide something of value to impact whether or not someone votes.
Florida's Attorney General has now sent a letter to the FBI and the State Department of Law Enforcement asking them to investigate. The state's law requiring felons to pay fines before they can vote was recently upheld by a federal appeals court. Julie Ebenstein, an attorney with the ACLU's Voting Rights Project, says in court part of the state's defense was that if felons don't have the funds, others could always pay for them.
I'm surprised to hear now that third parties who are generously willing to pay people's outstanding legal financial obligations, suddenly they're being accused of a crime for doing exactly what the state suggested was perfectly legitimate.
Daniel Smith, a political science professor at the University of Florida, says his research indicates nearly 775,000 felons in Florida have outstanding fines preventing them from voting. While he supports the efforts of Mead's group, he says it would take at least $1 billion to pay off the debt for all who need it.
And there's something fundamentally wrong about having to benefit from the largesse of an individual to have your voting rights restored.
Smith says there's little evidence helping felons register helps Democrats more than Republicans. Although African Americans are disproportionately represented in the group, the majority of felons with unpaid legal financial obligations are white. Desmond Meade says while others are focused on the election and politics, for him something larger is at stake, helping people reclaim their place in society. He talks about a father and son who were stunned that strangers paid their outstanding fines.
They were able to call the clerk directly, and the clerk was able to say, yes, sir, you have the zero balance. And once they heard that, both father and son started crying.
Like tens of thousands of others, Meade paid his fines and legal fees and has voted. But this week he was back before Florida's governor and other members of the state's clemency board, asking for his past criminal offenses to be pardoned. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis would only say he would take Meade's request for a pardon under consideration. Greg Allen, NPR News, Miami.